afternoon. Welcome to Quilting with Dawn, Part 3. What I'm going to do today is the next step of building my Lap Kitties quilt, which has as its foundational layer a rail fence pattern. So today I'm going to be cutting the strips that came from fat quarters and turning those into the pieces for the rail fence quilt. So it's all about cutting. Now Carolyn already gave me a tutorial or a refresher course in cutting this morning, and let's hope I don't cut off so I don't hurt myself, because there is a very sharp thing we use here, which is this cutting tool, and we use a ruler. And you'll see at the bottom here I have a graduated cutting mat. So not only does it provide a good surface for cutting on, but it also has lines to help you line things up. You see over here my pile of fat quarters. So it turns out that cutting is a little more precise than I thought it was. And I won't bore you with all the details, but needless to say, I go back to the thing I said in my last video, which is that all fat quarters are different, or rather, no fat quarters are not all created equal. So what we have to do for each one of these is measure them, make sure they're right, and then true at least two of the edges. So you've got a nice right angle to start for your strips. Once you get that right angle that's set up properly, then you can be assured that your strips are all going to line up nicely, and when they're sewn together, they're even and proper. If you don't do that truing up initially, you'll get wonky strips, and then you'll get wonky blocks, and then things won't line up, and you'll be pulling, well, I will be pulling what left is I have left on my hair. I'll be pulling it out if things don't line up right. So let's just do it. I'll walk us through it. First of all, I'll spend the most effort on the first piece, and then we'll go from there. Well, I thought before I do anything else, today I'd give you a quick tour of both my temporary studio for Quilting with Dawn and the real studio that is Carolyn's quilting place. So, first of all, let's look at what Carolyn has over here. This is the wee beastie known as a long arm quilting machine. She has someone's quilt on it right now that she's going to be quilting, but you get the idea. And as we move around, you see she has a wonderful view of the outdoors through well, it's kind of boarded up right now, but you can see that there's snow out there. The New Bay got snow last night. Part of the traditional quilting space that Carolyn uses is, of course, her sewing space, where she has her, well, sewing machine. And then something I have temporarily borrowed is her cutting table, which is an old oak desk. Works great for cutting, so I've got it now set up, ready to go. Behind, and what I'm going to use as a sewing station, is an antique sewing machine, a Singer antique sewing machine that is folded away right now. I'll show you later what it looks like. It's very cool. But yeah, it works as good for a table right now too. And of course you can also get the obligatory quilting cat. This cat here, our cat Wobbert, loves to hang out with us. And he's always got something to do for supervision when we quilt. He loves to hang out with us. Right, Wobbs? And then of course here's the cutting table that I'll be using. And the design wall, which right now has my older quilts on it, but which will eventually be used to lay out the new rail fence I'm building that will contain the kitties, the Lap Kitties. Right. This piece is 19 inches, more than 18, so good to know that already I know I'm going to have a little bit extra left over in the one direction. And lengthwise, it is 22 1/4. Again, good, because really I only need 10.5-inch strips times 2, which is 20. I need 21 inches, so I've got extra here as well. This is a good fat quarter. It meets all the requirements to make it is big enough that I'm going to be able to get my 6 times 2. I'm going to be able to get my 12 strips out of here. So now what I'm doing is lining it up on this grid work, so when I lay the ruler out, I'll have nice even cuts. And I'm going to cut the left-hand side here to true it up, because remember, it's got to be nice. You need a nice 90-degree setup here to make it work. So it looks like I've got that here. Now usually I would cut with my right hand But for this first cut, just the way things worked out, and as I practice it with Carolyn, I use my left. So it's a little scary for me. Just take her easy, right? All right, here goes. You notice I'm being careful how I place my hand because you do not want to cut fingers. I'm sure there have been industrial quilting accidents where people have hurt themselves, and that is just not a good thing. All right. Anyone who does this on a regular basis is probably laughing at how slowly I'm going. But you know what? That's all right. There we go. Nice true edge. Now I do the same thing on the bottom here. Exactly the same thing. Line up my edges. Dum, dum, dum. Like that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so voila. Now we have a nicely true 90-degree angle piece of fabric that I can now work this way and this way. Verifying I've got 21 once again. Got my hand in the right place. And we cut. Of course, the good quilts do this in one smooth motion. Obviously, I'm not there yet. Okay. And yeah, I got that right. So I now have a perfect piece of fabric to cut into my strips. And Carolyn suggested, because of the length of the ruler I have here, that I don't cut it in half like I talked about before to make 2 times, well now 10.5-inch wide strips that I make into 3-inch sections. I do it the other way around. I do all the 3 inches first, then I half them. So that's what I'm going to do. And now, I make each one of them in half, and bear with me. I'm not going to do that. You're not going to see me do each one of these. That would just be crazy talk. And there we have it. It's a laborious process, but you need precision, and I seem to have it. Even these 2 pieces match up quite nicely. So look at that. Yep. 12, 1 fat quarter, 2 groups of, oh, it's off camera now, but 2 groups of 6 strips each to make 12. And there we have a fat quarter. All right, I'll give you a quick catch up. I have been a little busy without filming it, and not that much more so. So a couple things happened. I worked on another fat quarter. I worked on this color here. It's very nice. And of interest is that I ended up making a cutting mistake. So there's definitely one of those or moments. When I was getting a little overcocky, a little overconfident there, I ended up having my blade go astray and creating this little tail here. So I consulted with the expert, and the expert says you can't use this piece because it'll be very close to where you're going to be sewing, and it's just not worth the hassle of it screwing up. So that simply means that I won't have this piece available for the mix. So it gets thrown away, can't use it, and I now have one less of that color, but no big deal. I'm sure we'll recover. So we'll just, keep going. but I did I had my second oops, although I don't consider this one a moment in this particular case. As I was going along, I have what equates to be these strips like this together, right? So in other words, I have these 3" by exactly 21" strips, because that's how I've been doing it. And the trick is to cut them in half. Well, I cut them in half by looking at this handy ruler and marking, here's 10.5 inches, which of course is half of 21. Stick it on the edge here, at the 10.5 inch mark, and cut. Well, now I've learned what happens when you don't actually pay enough attention to where you measured and you cut at 11.5 inches instead of 10.5. Because I did that, and I put the two pieces together, which should have been the equal length, and of course they weren't. One was a lot longer by 2 inches than the other. So I ended up doing, of course, is trimming the one that was 11.5 inches. I trimmed it to 10.5, kept it, but then the other one that was too short, I had to throw away or use for something else. So that's my second cutting mistake so far, but we're moving right along. Alright, so my quilting advisor suggested I try a hack. Well, I don't know if hack's the right word. She suggested I try doing 2 at once. Half the cutting. Or if you like, you're cutting twice as much in one stroke. So, I probably shouldn't talk with a knife in my hand. So that's what I've done. That's what I'm going to do. I've taken 2 of these. There's 2 pieces of this fabric here. And mashed them up as much as I can. Smoothed them out. And now I'm just going to do exactly the same process I did when it was 1 at a time. Okay, I can report back after that experiment as 100% success. I made no miscuts. The material stayed together the entire time, so that every cut twice, if you will. And I think that's the trick. I'm sure, is to make sure that when you assemble the 2 pieces together, that they are truly smooth together, so that there was no chance of them shifting when you're cutting. Everything else was exactly the same as before, and worked twice as fast. I think I cut now those 2 quarters, fat quarters, in 10 minutes. So that's 5 minutes of fat quarter. My very first one was over 18 minutes. I would check the time on the recording. So that's not bad. We're definitely getting an improvement curve going on here. Okay, and done. So let's see what we got here. Hopefully you can see, I think you can, just about everything here. I'll move it just this way a bit so you can see it all. Right, I have here 144 3" by 10.5" strips. It worked. I only made 2 cutting mistakes. Yay. I've got, as you can see here, each of these stacks is 6 pieces. So I've got 4 of these blue, were for 24. Same, I've got 24 of these. I've got 24 of these, 24 of these, and then 12 respectively of these other ones. So my next thing I'll do, and they'll be in the next video, is I'm going to coordinate them into the rows of 4 colors, as you see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll be doing the same thing, coordinating them into stacks of, if you will, or patterns of 4, and then begin the sewing process. So the next video is going to be exactly that. Coordinate the colors, and then let the sewing begin. Yeehaw. Thank you very much for checking this out, and we'll see you next time.